Do you still have that toothless photo of you in your Instagram, Russ?
Mate, now Shaminda, you need to explain to the listeners exactly what happened, because that was when I put my body on the line for the benefit of you as a coach.
Welcome everyone. My name is Vida and this is Sri Lankan Cricket Podcast. This is a special interview episode and I'm joined by my co-host Sohan. How are you doing, Bora?
Good, Vida. How are you?
I'm good, Bora. Very excited about this interview as we are approaching the start of a new cricket season in Victoria. Today, we are delighted to welcome Russell Jarrett. I call him Rusty J. Welcome to Sri Lankan Cricket Podcast, Russ.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, really good. I'm excited to have a chat to you boys. I've heard about this Sri Lankan podcast, so it's going to be a fun chat. I'm excited, boys.
Glad to have you with us, Russ. I want to introduce Russ to our listeners first. Russell Jarrett is a veteran in the fitness industry. His experience goes over 30 years, working across different roles. He's been a coach, trainer, educator, and a business owner. He's had stints in the AFL, worked with Cricket Australia, in the WNBL, any sport, you name it, Russ is across. I think he's had a stint with Australian women's team as well. So he's the perfect person to touch base when it comes to the physical aspects of the game. So pretty keen to explore, ask a few questions covering these areas as well and try to tap a bit into his knowledge.
Absolutely, boys. I'm happy to contribute wherever I can and talk about some of the things that I've done and explore some of the elements of physical preparation for cricket. That'll be good.
Tell us a little bit about your experience with Aussie women's cricket team, Russ.
Yeah, I keep telling people that was one of the best roles I've ever had in terms of what I do. You know, that took me all over the world and I got to see some amazing places. I got to visit, all sorts of amazing cricket grounds. And because I'm a bit of a cricket tragic myself, I've played a lot of cricket. I've been around cricket for a long time. It's been one of the sports that I grew up with. As a child, cricket was my favourite sport. If I wasn't playing cricket, then in the wintertime it was probably football or something else. But in summer it was all about, the outdoors and playing cricket and being a part of that. So when I got that role with the women, it was kind of like almost like your dream job. I'm a physical performance coach. I make athletes work better, train better, perform better, stronger, fitter, faster. That's what I do. But then I got to do it with, the best lady cricketers in the country. And I got to travel to England a number of times, India a number of times, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka a number of times, New Zealand, all over Australia. I think that pretty much was all of it. I didn't get to go to South Africa. Unfortunately, we didn't have a tour there, but yeah, mate, traveling the world and being a part of a great cricket team, it can't get any better, can it?
I was reading through and saw a quote I came across. Ellis Perry talks very highly of you. She speaks about how, Russ, you've been part of the women's team for 6 years. And I think it's right to say that you would have been part of that early generation that set the tone for what they are achieving now as a unit. And I think she touches off with a very important one. She says, Russ is a great guy who I now count as a lifelong friend. And I think that's pretty impressive. Or I love that quote, which was given by Ellis Perry.
Yeah, we I was lucky in that respect. I travelled with the girls for, as you say, 6 years, and we did a lot of great things together. We achieved a lot together, and just to be on the sidelines and watching some of those athletes play cricket, was amazing. I was at the WACA in WA when Meg Lanning made her debut, and in her very amazing. In her very first ODI innings, she came out to bat on the on the WACA, on a great wicket. She was 20 or 30 runs, and one of the bowlers bowled one onto her pads, and she just flicked it over the top of square leg for 6. And we all just sat there and looked and went, "Hang on a minute." You don't see that kind of stuff very often, that's rare. And look where she is now. You know, she's going to end up being probably the highest run scorer in the history of cricket for Australian women. She'll probably end up holding the record. Yeah. I think she holds the record now for the most centuries by an Australian female. You know, she's going to be one of the greats of all time. And I was there to see her start. You know, I saw Elise Perry do amazing things. Alyssa Healy, Rachel Haynes, and all of those girls. You know, I was very lucky to see that. You know, you could just tell that when I started, I could just tell that this was something really special that was building. And now they're I wouldn't say they're unbeatable, but they're very hard to beat. They're very hard to beat.
Yeah. They have been dominating for the last 3 to 4 years. I mean, we had this discussion with Estelle when we had a chat with her last episode. And, you know, we talked a lot about Aussie women's cricket because they are setting that bar really high for women's cricket. And you must be a really happy man that you have contributed to their success, Russ.
Yeah, it's nice to be a part of it. I was saying to someone the other day, I can remember when I was with the girls, we were playing against England. And England were over here. We were playing a game. It was just a one-day game, part of the series, and it was being played at the Junction Oval in St Kilda. There would have been maybe 150 people watching the game live at the ground. And then 2 years ago, I was lucky enough to get tickets and go and watch them play against India in the final of the World Cup, the T20 World Cup. And in that final, there was 85,000 people at the MCG.
Yeah.
Amazing.
How tough was it getting the girls into the fitness side of the game, or for them to understand that aspects of it? Because it's more like a lifestyle now. But I think when you started, you might have had challenges getting that around.
Yeah, you're right. When I first came on board, the story is very quickly. I was simply there to fill in a 9-week gap because they were short on staff. And they had a World Cup campaign in England. So it was a 9-week tour, which was 4 weeks of T20 World Cup, and then a 1 week break, and then we went into a home tour. An away tour against England, who were the home team. So it was a 9-week tour and they just needed someone for 9 weeks. So I was having coffee with a friend who had worked with them and they said, you know, they need someone. Would you be interested in doing just a short tour? And I said, absolutely. Like, you know, go to England for 9 weeks and watch cricket. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Yeah. And I saw, you know, I was probably a little surprised at the lack of physical preparation that I saw. And so at the back of that tour, Cricket Australia asked me to write a report and I was pretty honest and brutal. And I thought, well, they're not probably going to like this because, you know, that's their best team. And I think there's a lot of work to be done. So I wrote a report which was honest, but it was also pretty brutal and pretty truthful.
Sounds like you, Russ.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's the only way I know how to do it. You're right, Chaminda. But, you know, the funny thing was it obviously resonated. And, you know, Cricket Australia said, well, okay, if that's where you see the team, if we give you a role, what can you do with it? And I said, well, if I've got time and I've got resources and I've got buy-in, I can make a difference. And so over the next 6 years, we set our standards pretty high. We worked hard. We had a great culture within the group and within the coaching, within the coaches. So everyone was accountable, everyone was answerable, everyone was on board. And 6 years later, you know, I left the group confident that physically they were in a much better position and at a much higher standard than when I inherited the group. But, you know, it's even better now because when I left, the people that have come after me have taken it to another level. And I think I believe that one of the reasons that the Australian team dominates is because they're highly skilled, excellently coached and drilled. But I also believe that physically they are superior to most teams in the world.
No, you're absolutely right, Russ. I mean, you can see from the results for the past few years, we as Sri Lankans, we are used to having Aussie trainers in Sri Lanka. You know, we had Alex Conturious and Jade Roberts. We had the flying physio.
Tommy
Zimzak, yeah. So we are used to having Aussie physios and just because they're good at their job and, you know, we have benefited from that as Sri Lankans. I think that's a good segue to move on to what we are going to talk about today, which is importance of fitness, nutrition in cricket. Now we are approaching a cricket season here. So, I mean, how important it is to have a good preseason to perform at your best in the season, Russ?
Yeah, look, it's we know that those things go hand in hand. It's been proven time and time again. And anyone that has a good season of sport, whether it be football, whether it be cricket or anything else, if there's a physical demand to the execution of the skill, for instance, fast bowlers, they are of the cricket team, they are the most physically well prepared generally because they have the highest workload. Most pace bowlers will tell you that their in-season performance is directly related to their preseason work and the success of their preseason. If they can do, good workloads over an extended period of time, then it sets them up to perform the skill that they need to perform. Because at the elite level, at the first class level, and at the test level, some of these pace bowlers can bowl, something like 25 to 30 overs in a test at high speed. That's an enormous workload. Now, if you're playing a 5-test series, well, you're not going to be able to withstand that punishment on your body. Now, that's at the elite level. However, if we're talking about district or Premier League or sub-district or club cricket or anything like that, maybe we're not executing the skills to the same level as the elite, but we're still putting pressure and stress and workload through our body. So, I just see it as still relevant, as still important. I've been helping out one of the Premier League clubs over the last 8 weeks.
Right.
I've been because they're in lockdown in Melbourne, and they can't do anything really. So twice a week I get online with the Greenville Kangaroo Premier team. And I take them through physical work online because they've got to do something physically to allow them to be ready to execute the skills when they get to, which is in a couple of weeks' time.
Russ, with the you touch base perfectly how you said that touching base with fast bowlers, making sure you keep that high intensity or going through that 30 overs. Something like we've noticed for a spinner, at least you're able to come back a lot more quicker because, of course, we do the lazy stuff of not running as much as the fast bowlers. But through the various teams we played and had leadership roles in the teams, something we've noticed is when the game spread out, having to come back to that high intensity is where the players struggle or find it difficult. So, for example, if it's a fast bowler coming back into that third spell or the latest part of the spell, the body doesn't cope with that.
Especially in Sri Lanka when it's 35 degrees and 90% humid.
And the batting as well, because you go through certain gears of the innings. Like you might start strong, but then you slow down, and then you got to finish off the innings at high intensity to score the targets you need. Do you consider that in how the players prepare for the season, or is that given thought? Or
Look, it is in the respect that. Okay, so the first thing that we always look at is, what's probably the worst case scenario, or what's the highest load that we expect them to have to complete. Okay, so in a test match, it's a little bit more open-ended because we don't really know. But at least in a one-day game or in a T20, the workloads and the time of work is much more defined, especially bowlers. They can only bowl 10 overs or they can only bowl 4 overs, right? So it's a little easier. But having said that, a lot of the research will suggest, and it shows that the intensity of T20 cricket is the highest. So the intensity is higher, but the volume is lower. So high-speed running and high-velocity work is really important. So if I'm preparing a team for a T20, then I believe there's a lot more sprinting and change of direction and diving and that kind of stuff that needs to be executed because it's a lot more athletic, it's a lot faster, and the intensity is a lot higher. And that trend continues with ODI cricket as well. Now, with the Test cricket, we know that they're going to have a high volume, but when they've finished their spell, so let's say a fast bowler bowls, 6 overs in their spell. From the moment they finish to when they're next asked to bowl, it's a case of, well, how do we get this person to recover? If it's really hot and humid, as Chaminda pointed out, then hydration is key. We've got to keep them mobile. We've got to replenish those energy stores. We've got to make sure that we're addressing any kind of niggles or soreness and just get them ready for that next spell.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, I know. I mean, Bora, remember we used to get into an ice bath every time we getting for a break when we were playing first class cricket in Sri Lanka. Lunchtime, we just get into an ice bath 2 to 3 minutes. Then we do the same at the tea break. Yeah. I think if you talk about workloads, injuries comes next, isn't it? I mean, when you start playing too many games and you tend to break down, and coming out of an injury is always been a challenge because you don't know when to go full tilt. So how do you find, guiding someone to get back to playing going through an injury?
Yeah, so that is always going to be a bit of a team effort. I play a role in that, but so does the physio. And so does the athlete themselves, so it's that group discussion and group plan. So, the athlete is always central, so that they need to understand what's going on. So if you're coming off, let's say a soft tissue, like a hamstring or something, obviously there is a reasonably structured process to the rehabilitation phase. And then there's the reintroduction to running and the reintroduction to strength work. And then later on, there'll be the reintroduction to bowling. And then we'll gradually increase the speed and the intensity and the volume and the number of balls bowled. Now, the question is, okay, how do we know if they're ready to play? That's always the question. How do we accurately measure and predict return or readiness for return to play? Now, generally speaking, we're going to have a really good understanding of what their high-speed running velocities are, and we use GPS for that. So, we know that the fast bowlers, when they're at full workload, we know how much high-speed running they do per over, per 5 overs, per 10 overs. We also know with GPS the impact and the ground reaction force. So when they come into bowl, we know how much force is going through that front landing leg.
Yep.
So we use that data, and we also know through tracking and of course this is all done at the elite level because we've got the resources and the people and the instrumentation and the devices. But we know that when an elite fast bowler is fully fit, we know that they should be bowling X amount of deliveries every 7 days.
Yep.
If you're coming off a soft tissue, when you're bowling, whether it's, let's say it's 150 deliveries. If you're bowling 150 deliveries at full pace every set, in a 7-day block, and you're not sore, you're not pulling up poorly, we know that you're pretty much ready to return to play.
Yeah, it's always a tough one. I mean, it's always been a tough one for me. I mean, you don't want to go too early. And as you said, now the game has evolved so much. You can monitor all this through technology. I mean, I think you were talking about that, the triangle thing you wear. Bora and I we are keen investors, and we looked into investing in that company as well. Bora, remember?
Catapult.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Catapult GPS, yeah. When I was with the women, just as I finished, they bought a whole set of GPS units specifically for the girls.
Right.
So when I was with them, we had to rely on basically tracking deliveries. So we would literally plan and count deliveries bowled in training sessions and in games, and then we would put all that into an Excel spreadsheet, and we'd make our calculations and figure out how many balls they bowled, where it's all done with GPS now.
Love it. Like my eyes lit up when you talk about stats and data.
I
I love
know.
that. I'm all over it, and I'll spend the whole day in that. And exactly how you mentioned, you monitor. I mean, it's fascinating insight how you monitor. Like you shared a lovely example how the fast bowlers at high intensity, the workloads they go through. I mean, through the running speed itself, I guess it indicates, hang on, something's right or wrong here. If he's slowing down in his running speeds, you might be able to alert, okay, something's triggering some issue for his performance. You touch base the team environment where you said physio trainer and the player gets involved. At which stage would the coach or the head coach or a bowling coach get involved in these data feeds, or at which stage does he come into play?
Yeah. So they'll always have some form of they'll be across that, and they'll have some form of input in the initial stages of rehab, in the initial stages of recovery. There's nothing they can really do, but it's when that pace bowler comes through that later stages, when they start to bowl again, that's when the head coach or the fast bowling coach starts to get involved again. So if it's a hamstring soft tissue injury, it might take 6 weeks to get the player back. The first 2 weeks, the coaches don't really get involved. Probably from weeks 3 to 4, they'll start to see where we're at. And then when that pace bowler starts to bowl, then the head coach and the bowling coach will become pretty heavily involved, along with the physio, the doctor, and the strength and conditioning coach. Sometimes there's too many opinions, huh?
Exactly
well,
right.
It's been interesting. Management of fast bowling is pretty good these days, but it went through a period, I think, a few years ago where we probably put too much emphasis and too much power into the hands of the coach. Not the coach, the strength and conditioning coach and the physio. Right. And we needed to give more input to the player themselves, because pace bowlers, they know how their bodies feel, and so most pace bowlers like to bowl a lot of deliveries to feel good.
No, you're right.
With the players coming through, we talk about the bowlers. Batsmen, would they do anything slightly different? We see batsmen having to be more agile, speed. I think strength and condition comes now with T20. In Sri Lanka, something we'd like to know, because we are more used to the running aspect. So we get monitored on how our running, like we get measured on the running aspect. For example, we've all done the beep test, we've done the yo-yo test. Are there any measurements when it comes to the strength aspect? Is that like
So we used to strength test all of our players, pace bowlers, spinners, batters, everyone was strength tested, everyone was fitness tested, everyone was power tested. But we used to just have different benchmarks for different players and what their roles were. But certainly batters, they need to be strong, because they need to put power behind their shot. Especially in the short form of the game, you've got to clear the rope. You have to clear the rope. So, in one-day cricket and in T20 cricket, if you're a batter, even down to number 8 or number 9, you have to be able to clear the rope. And I think that, to go back to what I said earlier, I can remember our head coach, this would have been around 2014, 15, 16, around that era, when Meg Lanning started to become, world recognised, and Alyssa Healy started to become a critical element of the team. Our head coach said, we just have to get stronger, because we have the ability. You girls have the shots to clear the rope, but you don't yet have the power to do so. And also what they identified, this is really interesting, because it shows you the evolution of the women's game. No one in women's cricket was able to hit a 6 not over cover, right?
Yeah.
or down mid off, straight.
Yeah. It's always been the cow corner, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was always cow corner. It was always, the mid wicket cow corner shot or the shot, the pull shot, that just gets nailed. But Meg Lanning and Alyssa Healy and players like that, they were the first women to be able to hit a six over cover.
Right. Yeah.
And over mid off. So, and that's when they changed the game, because previously, if you were playing women's cricket and you wanted to stop players clearing the rope, well, you would bowl outside off stump and you would set a deep cover and a deep mid off, and then they would just hit one.
To try the runs,
yeah. And Meg Lanning and Alyssa were the first ones. You'd put a fielder back and they'd go, I don't care. I'm going straight over their head anyway. And when they started to do that, other countries had to then raise their standard. Yeah. And now there's a lot of women in world cricket that can hit a six on the offside.
Yeah. I mean, this reminds me of 100 meters. I mean, for a long time, no one could run it less than 10 seconds. And one person did it, then that record has freshened like every other month after that. So it's a confidence thing as well, isn't it? When you see someone do it, you go and try it and you raise that bar high.
Russ, when you touch base, I think from the one thing we've discussed and we've come to terms is the enjoyment of the sport and strength and conditioning, running, fitness. Back in our day, it wasn't enjoyable, right? At a stage, it's like, here we go, we got to run, X amount of Ks. End of the session, you can hardly walk back to your car. But I've noticed you touch base about the enjoyment aspect. I think it would have changed over time as well. This is me talking back in 2000, like you said, 2004 is 2014 when things changed. But we were running in Sri Lanka back from the early 2000s with her, and it was, a military style of workouts to, was that an intentional thing to bring the enjoyment aspect? Is that your style of training, Jared, or is that?
Yeah. Look, yes and no. I mean, okay. So there's only a certain way that you can program these things and that you can organize these things. So otherwise, if you try and disguise them or if you try and manipulate them too much, then they become almost non-effective. So there is an element that, there are certain exercises, there are certain activities, there are certain amounts of running that they'll never be easy and they'll never be fun, but that's just the way it is at that level. And players can come to terms with that. I guess for me, what I delivered to the women's team was a way of training them hard, but also showing them that there is reward and satisfaction in hard work. So sometimes, we used to do some really solid work, some really tough sessions, and it wasn't fun and it wasn't easy and it was painful. But I think what we did was, as a group, we embraced that, and we decided that, that's what would eventually make us better, and that's what would lead us to become a dominant team. So the enjoyment for them was knowing that if I do this work and I prepare to my absolute best, then success and enjoyment and fun and reward will come. And that's what happened. So even during the hardest sessions, there was a determination to embrace it because they knew that rewards would come, if that makes sense.
No, I think spot on. Like now looking back, it's exactly right. When you have the success, you kind of have that enjoyment knowing, all right, all that hard effort we did was worth it. It wasn't pretty at that time, but it's like, okay, I can walk through the sessions that I'm getting tested through in competition because I've done the hard work.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no one likes to be in pain, but but everyone likes to be a winner. So
Hmm.
you kind of have to make the decision as to which road you're gonna take.
I think one reason we didn't enjoy it because in Sri Lanka there's hardly a preseason, Russ, because we play cricket throughout the year. So sometimes when you get selected to a squad or something, they'll do these fitness routines while you're playing games, and it's not it's not enjoyable, and it's too much on your bodies.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're a little bit different, aren't we, here in Australia, where we have definite periods or definite seasons.
Yep.
And definite, in season and definite off season where you can rest and recover. But you're right. I guess in different countries where the weather patterns are different, I mean, I hadn't thought about that, but I'm assuming, do you have an off season in Sri Lanka?
Maybe a month.
Really?
Yeah, because in Sri Lanka, we play the domestic club season, which takes about 6 months of your year. And then we've got a strong mercantile cricket competition, which is the corporates play teams.
Yeah.
And then in between, you have the touring A teams or travel between the squads that happen. So that kind of books out your year in terms of cricket. Touching base with the long season, any advice for a player how to manage, like advice for a Sri Lankan player playing a year full of cricket?
That's a good question. I'd never really considered that, but you're absolutely right. I mean, your climate and your weather conditions are different, so therefore you don't really have a defined, non-playing time.
Yeah.
I guess what it comes down to is then it's a bit like a professional tennis player, right? Professional tennis players and professional golfers, they follow the season. They never really have an off season. So when I've worked with golfers and tennis players, basically it comes down to managing your workloads and your training intensity to marry up with when you've got periods of really important competition or periods of really, less important or minor. So if your competition is not that important, then that would be the time when I would be doing as much physical work as possible. Because if you go into a game and you're a little bit tired or a little bit sore, it doesn't really matter so much. But if you're about to go into a period of very important competition or selection, then you've got to make sure that you're fit but fresh and ready to play.
When you say fresh, like we feel after games play and the next day your body. So am I right to say it's the time that you get back to feeling like you say fresh or feeling back to normal movement? That's the recovery period that we talk about for players?
Yeah. Look, recovery is it's an area that there is always going to be confusion about, because people recover at different paces and some people are a little bit more resilient than others. But we do know that if you're in good physical shape, if you're fit and you're strong and you're lean and not carrying too much body fat, generally speaking, that's going to give you an advantage and your recovery ability is going to be better, as well as hydration, nutrition, and sleep. They're the big three: hydration, nutrition, and sleep. You can't cheat that. You've got to execute that, otherwise you're going to be in trouble. But generally speaking, the fitter you are, the healthier you are, the better you will recover. And so it comes back to doing the work when you can, doing the preseason and the preparation and the physical work when you can. And then when it comes to competition, well, it's compete and recover and repeat, compete, recover, repeat. And some people can back up really well and some people struggle. Elise Perry used to always back up pretty well. She was strong, she was fit, she was diligent. And then other players would get, quite sore because perhaps they didn't have the same physical capacities that she did.
We covered a lot here. I mean, we can go on for a day. There's a lot to talk about, but Russ has limited time with us. We have a wide range of listeners, from professional cricketers to softball cricketers, and I'm sure our listeners got a lot out of this episode. Is there anything else you want to add into that, Russ?
I think probably the thing that I've noticed, guys, is that the sport of cricket has come a long way in the last probably 10 years, maybe 15 years, but certainly the last 10. In terms of physical preparation, cricketers are so much better than they used to be. Now, there's a lot more cricket played around the world. The scheduling for professional cricket is crazy.
Yeah.
You've got, if you're a professional cricketer in Australia, you've got Sheffield Shield, you've got the one-day competition. If you're good enough, you might get picked to play for Australia one day or Australia Test. And then there's IPL. And then if you're not doing IPL, maybe you're doing the Pakistan Premier League. There's the West Indies. What's the West Indies one?
CPL.
Caribbean Premier League.
Thank you. CPL, that's right.
There's a lot of circuit cricket going around. Like every country has a domestic T20. So
Yes, that's exactly right. So I think because of all of these competitions, there is an increased opportunity for talented cricketers to earn a lot of money, for a lot longer than perhaps there used to be. So the career, I think, the career of a professional cricketer, if they start playing professionally at say 20, if they keep themselves fit and healthy, especially as a batter, they can participate until their mid-30s, maybe a little older.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that's 15 years of earning money, and it's good money at the professional level. So there's a lot more incentive, isn't there, and a lot more opportunity for players to stay fit and strong and ready to play for a long period of time. So, that's force. And also too, they're getting paid a lot more than they used to. So there is that responsibility and accountability on players to turn up to their franchise in shape. You've got to turn up in shape.
There's
you
massive
can't
upside, like you mentioned, with 15 years of cricket as a professional athlete. You got, if you do it well, it sets you up. 15 years and then you're pretty much at retirement. Not many have that luxury of retiring while you're before 40. So a lot of the players have to, we touch the coverage comes into the fitness and how a massive impact it is. We've seen in the soccer teams going around, they do a lot of medicals to check up on the players' fitness to see if they get the value for the investment they're doing on the player. Yep. I think that's that shift we are seeing now gradually into cricket coming through. How does a player, I think just to wrap it up, I'd like a bit of your advice to an upcoming player who wants to settle into the professional system. What would you give a bit of advice for him so he's better equipped going into a season or in a career?
To play professionally?
Yeah,
I think that probably the element that has been neglected but certainly is much better understood today is to be strong. Cricketers understand the importance of being fit and having aerobic fitness, but being strong and being well trained in that aspect generally means that their power is going to be higher, but also too their resilience to injury is going to be better. So strength training has come a long way, especially for pace bowlers, but increasingly so for batters, because, if you've got skills and you can clear the rope and you can play a lot of one-day cricket, a lot of T20 cricket, there's a lot of money to be made, isn't there? People like McCullum and Chris Lynn and power hitters like that, they're going to make a lot of money for a long period of time. So that would be my advice. If you for professional cricketers, their body is their income. So if you're not fit, you're not on the field. If you're not on the field, you're not making money.
As simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, this has been really great. We are going to consider you as a friend of the podcast. We would love you to come back again. I mean, if our listeners
got more subjects to cover us, we're just getting excited. And
that's okay.
Absolutely.
Hey, boy, we can always do more episodes, boys. That's the beauty of Zoom, isn't it? And podcasts. You can always catch up and have a chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if our listeners want to interact with you, where can they find you, Russ?
Yeah, the best way to interact is just go to my website, which is russelljarrett.com.au. I've got an Instagram page as well, which is Russell_Jarrett1. But just go to the website. You can find my email there, and you can send me an email if you need anything. I'm happy to help. Yeah,
we'll add all those links in the show notes. Do you still have that toothless photo of you in your Instagram, Russ?
Now, Chaminda, you need to explain to the listeners exactly what happened, because that was when I put my body on the line for the benefit of you as a coach.
Well, this was when I joined Shepparton Youth Cricket Club, Bora.
Yeah.
And that was our first training session, or maybe the second one. So Russ said, I'll grab the guys and we'll do a quick warm up. And he had this mitt on his hand, and this was indoors. This was in July, I think. So we couldn't train outdoors, and they did some running and stuff. Then Russ got the boys to line up, and he's rolling the balls, and they were meant to underarm the ball back to him. One guy, he just went full on. Oh, Russ missed it right on the face. I can hear him saying some bad words, and he rushed out of the indoor center, and that's how that photo came about. I mean, you still you got your teeth intact now, so you look good.
No, you're exactly right. That's what happened. I mean, I was doing a warm-up drill. I asked them to underarm the ball, reasonably quickly, but into the mitt. And one guy just threw the ball so hard, and I had no time to react. So the ball just went bang and literally snapped my front tooth halfway up. I'm just, as we speak, Chaminda, I'm just trying to, I don't know whether I've still got the photo in my Instagram. If I do, I'll send it to you, and you can use it in your promo for the episode.
Yeah. We will.
I mean, we've all been through a very, a preseason mishap of new players coming through who don't understand steps.
Yep.
It's we've learned it through experience. Now you're like, oh, hang on, just got to know who the players are involved in this preseason. If it's a new guy, you just want to sit back, see how he's going before you settle in. So,
man. I mean, I'll never forget it. Because the pain was intense, and there was blood everywhere.
Funny thing is, he rushed out and he got some ice, and he came back. Have you guys seen the part of my tooth? And he's looking for the part of
Yeah.
But,
well,
I
found the bottom half. It was still on the ground. No one had picked it up. I don't think anyone wanted to go near it. But I got in to see a dentist a couple of days later. That happened on a Friday night, Chaminda.
I think so, yeah.
It did, and I didn't get to the dentist until Monday, so I had to spend the whole weekend with half a tooth. Funny times.
It's all for the love of the game.
Sorry, before we wrap up for the day, I think we have Russ has a few commitments that he needs to rush out to. Ashes predictions, Russ.
That's tough because it just, what dawned on me the other day was, you'd always probably back Australia to do well at home because the conditions obviously suit us like they suit England. But Australia has not played hardly any Test cricket in the last 2 years.
That's a fair.
I don't think they've played Test cricket for nearly 12 months. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, last series was against India, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, because the South African tour was, I think, cancelled. I think they pulled out of it. So, you're right.
So they have not played any Test cricket. England played Test cricket against India only a few months ago. So they've had more Test cricket, even though they're coming to Australia. I think Australia is going to be very much underprepared. Plus, a lot of the Shield players, a lot of the Test players at the moment playing Shield cricket are stuck in their own state. So Victoria and New South Wales can only play in New South Wales or Victoria. So these Test players are not playing in Brisbane. They're not playing in South Australia. They're not seeing different conditions. So I tell you what, if there's a time for England to upset Australia and win away, this is their opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call.
Don't be surprised if it's like a 2-2 draw, which means Australia retains the Ashes, but it's going to be a tough series.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fair assessment.
My prediction.
Let's
do this again. Let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely. I think that's a good place to wrap up. I mean, if you like to give us feedback, send it to our email, srilankancricketpodcast@gmail.com, and find us in our socials. And we'll leave all the links in the show notes. We'll add Russ' Instagram as well, that you can go and check his photos there. Thanks for joining us today, Russ. It was a pleasure.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Russ. Thanks for coming on board. It's been a pleasure having you. Hope to see you in another episode and touch base more about the topic we love, cricket.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.